Well, hello and welcome to another LinkedIn Live Q&A where I'm delighted to be joined by Grant Murray, who is a currency strategist for the UK North and Europe at GPS Capital Markets. And today we're going to talk about bringing back boomerangs to the northeast of England. So how are you doing, Grant?
I'm good, thanks, mate. Now we've gone live, my heart rate's just gone up by about 10 beats per minute.
Beats
per minute. Lots of beats per minute just here.
I was going to say, is that are they always out, or have you put them out just for this? Because
it's not that curated, mate. They're always there. I've started actually during this kind of lockdown period to try and have something different. So this is in the corner of my front room. I kind of they were all slotted in side by side, and I thought, you know what, I've got some pretty good ones here, so I just sort of turned them, the big influences on my musical life, and I just decided, right, okay, I'm going to turn them around. And of course, whenever you come into meetings, they're a bit of an icebreaker. So
yeah, legendary album. So is it Left Field Leftism? Have you got? Is it the Stone Roses?
Stone Roses, She Bangs the Drums,
Beastie Boys, yeah.
Square Pusher, who I went to school with and grew up with, Aphex Twin, Primal Scream, Massive Attack, Happy Mondays, Richie Hawtin and Plus 8, and a little bit of Ibiza, where I've spent a lot of my misspent youth. So
amazing. Yeah, well, they're some of my favorite albums as well. So yeah, massive. Well, music. I know you're a massive music fan as well. So when we first met, that was something that we hit off talking about music, and we've definitely got an affinity there. So we'll maybe come back to that, because there's some big northern bands in there, and
sure.
And your role is currency strategist for the north of England and Europe, or north of UK. So do you want to start just by explaining a little bit about what a currency strategist is or does?
Yeah, well, I've worked in currency markets virtually all of my career, since I was 21, 22, when I started working for a US investment bank, JP Morgan, and then kind of progressed from there. And then ultimately moved over to Sydney with National Australia Bank and spent 4 years there, and actually came back with them to run their franchises, Yorkshire Bank and Clydesdale Bank, here in the north in Scotland. And so, and that's kind of important, because I've kind of replicated that model since 2004 when I came back to the Northeast. So what does a currency strategist do? I strategize on currency, Paul. That's what I do. So currency markets are, the biggest market in the world. I think if you asked anyone out in the street, have they had any experience of currency exchange in one way or another, unless you've been hiding under a rock and never left the country, you will have at some point experienced currency movements. And that's whether you're buying foreign exchange in the airport as you're on your way out, whether you're sat in a restaurant in Spain and you're about to pay something on your credit card. Everyone's aware that exchange rates, you look at your receipt and go, oh, sterling against euros at 1, but I thought it was at 1.15 when I left the UK, and so using that as a kind of a basic model of how that affects people's private lives, if you uplift that into the real world of corporates and commercial and trading business, that's what I do. I help people and companies, finance directors, owner-managed companies avoid the risk that's attached with that, and how to strategize to avoid that risk. It's not foreign exchange trading, as you see advertised everywhere these days. A lot of the Premier League football clubs will have foreign exchange trading platforms, like someone like FX Pro or something. That's not what I do. I do the exact opposite of that, because that that stuff is to speculate, that's to gamble, and I'm here to kind of take that risk away. So helping firms actually all over Europe. I have my client set is all over the UK, Edinburgh, borders of Scotland, Newcastle, Liverpool, down in the southeast, Essex. I've got clients in Valencia, in Spain, and then from my time doing stuff in Australia, I've also got connections there. And then my company is based out of Salt Lake City. That's where our headquarters are, which is quite unusual in the financial markets. So my office is in Newcastle, on Granger Street, and our head office for Europe is in London, in Finsbury Circus, in the heart of the city there. So, yeah, I suppose, you know, my role is quite unusual in there's not many people doing what I do, and have been doing what I do in the region for as long as I have. And I was cheering louder than anyone when I saw that the Treasury is coming to Darlington, because, you know, I'm a Treasury market specialist. That's what I've done, whether that's on interest rates, on foreign exchange, on commodities, helping people avoid the risks that are attached to that. And then, you know, and pretty much be the only Treasury market specialist in the region for a long period of time and based in the region. To then see that the Treasury is coming into the region is an amazing thing, and just shows the massive amount of progress that we've got going on. So I'm going to clip it there, Paul, because you know me well enough. I'll just go on for half an hour. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome. So that's well, it just demonstrates your experience and your skills, obviously, all around the world and all across the UK, and the range of geographical locations that you cover right now as well. So I think you touched on it a little bit. Who would you typically be talking to? Would it be CFOs, or would it be owner managers? Who would you normally, finance directors, or who is it?
All of those. We do everything from billion-dollar companies all the way down to micro business. So we've got the ability, and I treat everybody exactly the same. You know, I'm just helping someone at the moment buy property over in Mallorca, giving them better rates and allowing them to think more strategically about how they're going to pay for the property. So, you know, that's what we'd call retail or personal. I've got, I'm not going to name his name, but I've got a lad based over in Tynemouth who's got a great business that's expanding, importing goods from Holland. I've got travel operators who aren't doing an awful lot at the moment, but will be as we come back out of lockdown, actually getting huge amount of bookings for the end of 21, 22. So yeah, logistics firms. I've got technology providers, service providers, because actually in this sort of more globalized world, you know, I mean, we give you an example. We're both based in Tuss Park in Newcastle, 27 Granger Street. And in that office, I'm aware of 1, 2, 3. There's at least 4 people in that office who are selling their services overseas. So New Zealand, Spain, the Middle East. So, you know, there's currency transactions going on all over the place. And actually, it's a good question, because yes, I look after finance directors and CFOs and COOs and managing directors and owner managed companies. But it's probably a good little segue into where you're at and what I decided to do and why I came back to the Northeast and how I thought I was going to do things differently. So, and this will link us in nicely to the boomerang piece of why I boomerang back. So between 2000 and that'd be 2012, 2013 to 2017, I moved back out of the Northeast into London because the bank that I was working for at the time, decentralized and brought me back into London. And I decided that I wanted to come back to the Northeast. And I was thinking to myself, how am I going to make a difference? How am I going to, who can I help? What can I do? And how can I challenge myself? I didn't really want to go down the traditional route that I'd done before, which was working in banks and speaking to accountants and lawyers and a very sort of direct channel of ecosystem that's already set up within the finance sector. I thought to myself, I want to be helping smaller companies grow, and I want to be helping companies that I wouldn't necessarily have had the reach towards. How am I going to do that? And how am I going to facilitate that? How am I going to have the platform to do that? I ran my own firm. I had my own consultancy called FX Act. And I had different providers that I could use their foreign exchange services for. Two of them who I worked really closely with, Smart Currency Business and XE for a period as well, prior to joining GPS Capital Markets. Where I decided to target was the startup scale-up community. And I thought, right, how am I going to do this? How am I going to access this market? Then I found this fella on LinkedIn with a hood over his head called Paul Lancaster, who called himself a super connector. And I thought, oh, okay, super connector, what's this bloke up to? And I scouted around on his LinkedIn, and I could see that there was lots of interesting stuff going on. He'd been posting different videos about the types of people, and I thought, this looks like a good starting point. And turns out it was, Paul, a really good starting point. And I came to my first Founders Friday. Crikey, I can't remember when that was. November 18?
2018, I think, yeah.
2018.
Yeah.
And there was all kinds of people there. It wasn't just startup businesses. It was the lawyers and the accountants and a whole ecosystem there for me to tap into. I met Dave from Blue Sky. I remember at the first one. Who was the chap who worked for the Indian firm, Paul?
Varun Singh from Zoho. That's
right. Yeah. So there was Varun bringing a global name into the city. And I know that you, at that first one, I remember you talking about how he sought you out to be toured around the city, and you took him around and, explained what Newcastle in the Northeast was all about. I thought, wow, okay, there's global businesses here, there's local businesses here, there's startups here, there's scale-ups here. This is a great starting point for where I want to go. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to go, but what I did know was that really I was a startup within a franchise. I didn't realize it until I sat there, but I was like, I am a startup. And then I went to your first major event, my first time at a major event, which was Newcastle Startup Scale Up Week, and I think the big turning point for me was seeing a fella called Stephen Bartlett, who's just written a book called
Happy Sexy Millionaire.
Yeah. Brave call, brave title.
I've got two of those three, but I'm working on the third. But I'll let you guess. I'll let you guess what the two are.
Happy and Millionaire. So, and he stood up and he was, he's really inspirational and talked a lot about how people build. It's very much sort of build your own personal brand within what you do. Your job title doesn't define you. Whilst we talked about my job title, what does a currency strategist do? I'd like to think that doesn't necessarily define me. That's what I do, and that's where I help businesses, and ultimately that's what pays the bills. And but there's a hell of a lot more to it than that. And then he said something, and then someone else reiterated that same message, and I'll touch on that. So he talked about LinkedIn. It's obviously where this is going live, and talked about that being the best platform for you to be able to build your own personal brand for free right now. But you've got to be laser focused about how you use this. This is not about hitting people up and selling your product. It's about being relevant. It's about giving strong content on a consistent basis, such that people get to understand you. Show your own personality within that. And I was kind of already doing that in a slightly different way online on my own website. And I thought, okay, how can I adjust this? And I came up with the idea, and I put out a daily post. Actually, I haven't put it out at all this week, for the first time in a very long time, mainly probably because of the school holidays, but there we go. And so I do a thing called The Landscape, and the landscape, it's sort of generally predicated on me taking a picture of the landscape. And that picture can be anything from graffiti to chalk scrawls on the floor to a load of chickens running around to, a viaduct with a beautiful sunset. Can be whatever it is. But really, it's a simile for what's going on in my world and what's my interpretation of what I am actually doing. The currency markets. And here's the landscape. I'm careful not to kind of try and predict what's going to happen, but give people a feel for what's going on. Have I just gone off on a total tangent?
No, that was perfect. Well, we'll talk about all of that, because definitely when it comes to LinkedIn, I think you're using LinkedIn better than pretty much anyone else that I know, because you're consistent. No, seriously, and I do regularly recommend, I say to people, check out what Grant's doing. That's how you do LinkedIn well, because you are consistent, and you're consistently excellent at what you put out. It's like you say, every day it's the same format, which people know what to expect. And for whether you're an expert or a total newbie like me, you can still learn from it. You're adding value, and I don't. This is, I think, a lot of people need to realize is something like LinkedIn for you. That's totally your target audience, isn't it? Right? Business owners, business leaders, decision makers, budget holders, anyone involved in finance, money. They're going to be on LinkedIn. They're probably not going to be on Instagram. They might be on Instagram, but they're probably not. Your target audience is going to be on LinkedIn, right? So you're always adding value every day. And people might not be ready to do any business with you yet, but when they are, you'll be the first person they think of, because you're front of mind, that you've proven that it's that credibility and kudos. Every day you're showing up, you're doing that, you're demonstrating your knowledge and your expertise. So as soon as somebody wants any currency advice, they'll get in touch with you. So let's
hope so. That's sort of the idea. But within that, I think, and the advice that I give, I mentor a few students, and the advice I give them is be you. So do you know what? I can be a bit flippant every now and then, as you know, and I can be, you can be a bit sarcastic and not agree necessarily with people's views, and I try and put that out there. I try and bring my personality into that. I'm glad that comes across, that I'm trying to make it simple, but also I will add in a little bit more complexity for those who want to delve a little bit deeper. But generally, I'm also trying to educate. And if you can pick up a little bit of nuance from what I'm saying, or at least it kind of helps you think about things more laterally, then that's got to be good, right? And that is another one of the things that Stephen Bartlett said. So I'm going to take this on a step further. The next person who's influenced me, and I've had a lot of influence with me, I'd call him my mentor, is a chap called Russell Dalgleish, who is the chairman of Scottish Business Network, very connected with the Scottish government and Scottish business generally. He's keen to connect Scotland with the northeast of England. He connects Scotland with the northwest of England. He does a lot of stuff in London, and he does a lot of stuff globally. And you and I went to something that he spoke at in Edinburgh. Crikey, when was that? 2000?
That was 2019. Yeah,
that was
2019. Third quarter, I think. So September, October time.
And Russell said something really interesting there again around LinkedIn. And it was this. He said, these days, emails have become much more of an internal process, an operational tool. Wow. And actually, LinkedIn is where it's at. If you want to get in contact with a business leader at the weekend, when they're on holiday, whenever it happens to be, they are far more likely to be reading LinkedIn Messenger than they are their own emails. That was a light bulb moment for me. I hadn't thought about it like that, and I thought, yeah, okay. So I collared him on the way out. He's not easy to collar. He's about 6'5", Russell, and I explored that with him. And I use the tool on a regular basis, and I'm finding that people do respond a lot quicker through LinkedIn, through messaging. Be yourself. That's not direct marketing. That's not I've got this product to sell, or will you. I still get those kind of emails. I'm sure LinkedIn messages. I'm sure you do, but more kind of I like your content. I'm wondering if there's something that we can talk about, and away we go, and actually built an amazing relationship with Russell ever since. So, if I track back those sort of 3 years to when I first came to a Founders Friday, it's important to go to these events and learn something. Another one is Be More Pirate, which was on the first evening event of that startup scale up week, and I took lots of little tidbits from that. Don't be afraid, just go for it. Challenge the norm. Just because the norm says that you need to behave in this way, that you have to hit a certain set of KPIs and hide behind a corporate box. Why? That's not what the youth of today are doing. That's not what the future looks like. So I try and bring a bit of that into what could be classed, financial markets, quite a stuffy kind of closed club really. And I don't want it to be. I want it to be accessible for everybody. Yeah,
no, totally. Well, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. That's the thing, isn't it? And that's the innovation happens at the edges. That's the thing. If you're thinking, okay, well, this is a slightly different way of doing something, then you're going to stand out from the pack. And that's what you're doing. That's what Russell's been doing. That's what Stephen Bartlett's been doing. That's what I've been trying to do. Like, that's anyone who's trying to innovate and grow and do things differently. You have to. It sounds a cliche, but you have to push the envelope a little bit. You don't want to. You still got to. You basically got to understand the rules and like where the boundaries are to be able to like go a little bit further out. So that's where your experience and your knowledge and insights come, because you know what's currently possible, and you start questioning, well, why can't we do something slightly different or a new way of, and then that's my thoughts on it. That's how you're doing that. And
I was going to say the one that always sticks in my mind, and I don't know where I heard this, but consistently making yourself feel slightly uncomfortable. Means that you are developing. The moment that you feel comfortable means that you're coasting, that you're not pushing yourself, that you're not innovating, that you're not growing, that you're not educating yourself. So that yeah, you know, there are a set of parameters that you need to operate within, but push those. You know, one of my targets is to help the creative industry with their currency risk, because the creatives have got a lot of currency risk, but they almost see it as, oh, finance, boring. I don't do that. And actually, they're not doing themselves any favors, because they just go, oh, the bank guy does that, and my accountant does that, so I'm leaving it there. But actually, there's a way to connect with the creative industries to be able to help them as well. So I mean, that is one of the, I suppose that's one of the challenges, and also one of my opportunities. So just push the norm a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
we've been going 25 minutes.
No, that's good. This is all good. I'll just quickly say, just on, on the Founders Friday and the Startup Week events and the Scale Up Summit events and stuff. I mean, when I first came up with the idea of doing that, I was trying to do lots of different things. What big thing was try and inspire and motivate more people to start or grow a business in the Northeast, right? So that was local people, but also people outside the region who might want to expand into the region, open an office here, or relocate even, right? Either the whole business or them as an individual, right? And then there was a talent attraction piece to it, and a talent retention bit. There was an inward investment angle to it, and a big part of it was trying to attract boomerangs back to the region, because people aren't just going to come back to the Northeast for a 1 hour meeting or a 2 hour meeting or a half-day event, but they'll come for a 5-day event, or they'll come to it. That's the point of creating this big significant event of national and international significance, that people are like, oh, that's interesting. Why is that happening in Newcastle and not London? Because the assumption is that events like that will only happen in the capital city. And everywhere I've gone, all over the UK and overseas, that's the reaction. People are like, bloody hell, that's amazing. Like, we wish we had something like that in our city, country, region, because it's exciting. And it's not just the daytime events, it's the networking events and all that. So that's what I set out to do. So it's exciting when I see it happening, when people like you use that as a way to, like, a way in. But then it's down to you. You do all the hard work from that point onwards. It's just like a landing spot, and there's other examples like Cindy Moykar from My Sisters came over from Minnesota the first year. She came for the full 5 days, and a few weeks later set up her business here in Newcastle, using the lawyers and the accountants and all the experts that you met here in the Northeast. So she's been coming back on a monthly basis ever since, and is in the process. She wants to relocate here. She totally fell in love with the region, and the only reason she came was because she saw the blogs, she saw the videos, she saw the social media, she read about it. She said, I think Newcastle is where I need to be for my business, because we don't get that type of event or that type of support here in the US. So it's exciting when it happens, and definitely before COVID, not just because of Startup Week, but probably because I'm looking as well, and I'm involved in lots of things, I was definitely noticing more and more boomerangs coming back. So what we mean by boomerangs is people like yourself who've maybe moved from here originally, they've moved away, they built their career, they built their skills, their experience, their network elsewhere, and then they now want to come back to the region to grow the Northeast economy, and so that local people can benefit from that experience that you've had. So you've touched on why you wanted to do that, but actually, why? Like, why bother? Like, why do you want to come back? Who cares? Like, it matters to me, and it matters to a lot of people, but we want people like you to come and help raise the bar and be part of it. But why bother?
Yeah, I mean, I think my story is a little bit unusual, but packaged within quite a normal story. So I left in the late 80s, and my father worked in the construction business as a civil engineer. Started off as a mining engineer, actually, in Ashington, and and work dried up. He worked for Northumberland County Council and worked on the Kielder Dam and all kinds of different things. We had a shop in Heaton. When he'd been in the Middle East, he came back with, made some tax-free money out there, bought a newsagent, and gradually the civil engineering work just started to dry up in the Northeast in that period where the mines were getting shut down, and shipyards were starting to kind of cut back, and the economic wealth of the region was not great. We had very sort of first-hand experience of it. My grandmother, Peggy Margaret Murray, was Lord Mayor of Newcastle in 1979, 1980. And, we were very aware of what the coffers were like for the city. At that time in his business, a lot of people in the Northeast who were skilled tradesmen couldn't find work. And the example I'm going to use here is Auf Wiedersehen, Pet. Was it, it was the reason that TV show hit very hard. Well, it was written extremely well and obviously cast very well, but it was a really common story of groups of lads leaving the region to go and make their money elsewhere, whether they were on the rigs, whether they were in Germany building, in Spain, like my dad going to the Middle East and helping build stuff in Abu Dhabi and Qatar and whatever, and then coming back to the region. And I think we're going to actually see another boomerang start to happen in Teesside. With highly skilled labor there having to leave the region as steelworks were wound down, etc. Redcar, that massive population of really skilled machinists and whatever, having to go away and do other jobs. Actually now that there's investment in the region, that the free ports are going to be opening up and create all of these jobs, actually you're going to get an influx of those people from the Northeast who've gone away and done other things and reinvest back into the region. So, but going back to your question, why, Paul, I just think that everything was in my childhood was so deep rooted in the region, was so based on it that when I went away and I went to school in Essex, the lads who I went to school with will tell you, I was walking around with the Newcastle United top on, at any time we were playing football or whatever, and I'd be traveling to go and watch Newcastle play down south. I kept my connection with the Geordie nation, if you like, by doing that. It was never out of me. And even when I moved to Sydney to work, I hooked up with a group of Geordies there. We had a football team called Toon Down Under. We'd go and watch Newcastle games of an evening. The time zone was different, different kickoffs. Newcastle Sunderland derby would be on midday here, be 11 o'clock at night there. Be watching games at 5 o'clock in the morning, baking on the barbecue, all of that sort of stuff. And proud to be a Geordie. Newcastle were a great side at that time, a long time ago. And I think if it's in you, it's in you, and that's the boomerang element. If you're from here, and I'll also say, I think people who are not necessarily born and bred here, but might have gone to university here and spent 4 or 5, and often if you're a medical student or the like, which is what the universities are very famous for here, you could have spent 7 years here. You go away and go and spread your wings. And actually, it's like, where did I spend the happiest years of my life? Newcastle, it's a great city. And so that's what creates the boomerang element. I don't know. I mean, you tell me, is it as strong elsewhere? In Ireland, in Scotland, in Liverpool, in Manchester? Are there boomerang Manx? Boomerang Scousers? I don't know. Is it a thing? I know it's a thing for us, but
I mean, I think it is other reasons definitely. I mean, you touched on before about like Russell, you know, the Scottish, the global Scots, all around the world, they still got that connection and that love of the country, and they want to play their part. And then the Irish definitely very very clearly defined. Everywhere you go, there's amazing Irish entrepreneurs and business people. And I think up until now, maybe the Geordie nation, as you say, hasn't maybe been so clearly defined, or the Northeastern group of people hasn't been so clearly defined. It's there, you know, it's there, and there's a feeling that you've got that love and that connection. But unlike maybe Yorkshire, you know, Yorkshiremen, you know, Yorkshire, you know what Yorkshire is.
Yeah.
But the Northeast is harder to define what the Northeast is. But so then it tends to be centered around football or cultural aspects of being a Geordie or being a Northeasterner. But I definitely think that is a massive opportunity that the Northeast needs to tap into more. And we talked about that before we went live as well, is that how do we get the Geordie nation to really to know that there's things to come back to,
I think one of the issues there is that people from Teesside, or the people from Durham, Sunderland, would not necessarily refer to themselves as Geordies, because Geordie is a very specific moniker to someone who's from Newcastle. And actually, I'm doing business and connected with people all over the region, from south of Tees Valley all the way up into Northumberland and across into Cumbria and into Scotland, and I think that might actually be kind of one of the sort of key sort of defining factors. I'm as proud of the work that Ben Houchin's doing, opening up Teesside Airport and making those connections, as I am as Catapult in Blythe and Port of Tyne, and Shepherd's doing stuff in Wallsend where my mum lives. As anywhere else, the regional economy is actually getting stronger, and I think coming out of COVID, we've shown ourselves to be resilient. We'll come out of it again, but it all comes back actually to what I do for a living, which is this huge amount of import export. We're a net exporting region. Why is that? Because of Nissan and the supply chain that's based out of Sunderland, and everywhere else that's connected to it. The Northeast Automotive Alliance do a fantastic job of connecting all of those people. So you can go into different areas of the region, and there's fabulous things going on. The difficulty, I think, is connecting those pieces of the jigsaw together, because there's historical stuff has gone on, and football, because football's such a major thing within the region. But I got brought up. My dad was a referee, top level amateur football, Northern League. He'd go down and referee into Sunderland and Brandon and Durham. He'd go into Teesside and do these big games, and I never felt like I was just from Newcastle, because he'd tell me all these stories about how he'd go into these different places. So it's a historical thing, isn't it? And those layers need to be peeled back. We need to operate together.
Totally. No, I get, you're right, because I mean, even the Newcastle Startup Week events, I mean, despite the name, the aim of the event was for the whole of the Northeast and Tees Valley. So I was very careful. I always made a point of saying that in the copy, in the description, that it was Northeast and Tees Valley. And but some people don't look beyond the name Newcastle Startup and think, oh well, I'm not Newcastle, I'm not a startup, that's not for me. So that's where it's become a bit of a misnomer. So I'd need to try harder to get that across, or just change that name completely. But
change the name.
Well, the thing is, I did at the beginning think, don't call it Northeast Startup Week, but I didn't want to, because then the Northeast is relative to where you are. You could have the Northeast of Scotland, you could have Northeast London, you could have Northeast anywhere. But at least Newcastle, people have heard of Newcastle nationally and internationally. and because there was that national, international aim and ambition for what I was trying to do, I thought that's quite a nice name to call it. And it has worked. You know, it has attracted people from all over the UK and all over the world and all over the Northeast. But there are still some barriers for some people who don't want to or find it difficult to get behind an event that's got Newcastle in the name. And what I would actually say on that is it tends to be the public sector, the councils, the public sector organisations that find it harder to get behind it than the businesses themselves. The business owners, the individuals often usually don't have a problem with it. Some do, you know, some are, you know, that only Sunderland and they don't ever want to do anything in Newcastle, and that's fine. But actually, it's most business owners don't care. Like if there's opportunities to grow their business and they can learn and they can build a network and they can do business, they'll go anywhere. They just need to know that is there, that the opportunities are there.
And that's very, and it's very true, because I'm just thinking of people that I've met through Newcastle Startup Scale Up Week. They're not based in Newcastle. You know, obviously, you know, I'm really good friends with Ian Farrer. He's in South Shields. He's a Sunderland fan. God bless him. And you know, there's lots of people in Middlesbrough, Darlington. You know, they're all over the place. So, you know, it's a difficult one, isn't it, Paul? Whether a rebrand, whether you keep the same branding moniker and kind of pivot within that, but maybe, you know, multi-venue across the Northeast is probably becoming more relevant. And bringing us all together. Anyway, that's a different story.
No, you're right. Well, definitely, you know, it's interesting. Like when I look at so there's the free blogs and videos and lots of free resources, but then there's the paid for element where people are paying to join the private Startup Week community. So that's a bit more curated content, one-to-one advice. I'm kind of looking out for people and creating opportunities for people. And when I look at that, it's pretty evenly split across the whole of the Northeast who are the members of that Startup Week community. But I have dropped Newcastle from that. I just call it Startup Week community. So and there's people outside the region who are in there as well. And then I'm having some great conversations with people in Darlington and Tees Valley who've seen what I've done, and they now want to tap into that expertise and want to learn from that and bring some of that down there or be part of it now. And with it being online now, it's a bit easier to do that. And exciting time. But I was just thinking, One Northeast, like the regional development agency, that was probably a really clever name, you know, because it was One Northeast, the whole of the Northeast. It wasn't Newcastle specific or Sunderland specific. It was the whole of the Northeast. So I think everybody needs to start thinking along those terms, that it's the whole of the region. It's not a local town or a local city. Localism does matter to people locally, but when you're trying to grow a national or an international business, it doesn't matter. You've got to rise above that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, look, if I was just trying to do business in Newcastle, then, you know, there's a very finite pool of what you can do. So I think you might have given yourself your answer there, actually. You know, a deviation from One Northeast or something along those lines might well work.
Well, on the next thing I was going to talk about is heroes, like Northeast heroes. Like who is flying the flag for the Northeast nationally and internationally? I mean, you know, obviously you are. You know, you're doing your bit. I'm doing my bit. I'm speaking to people internationally and nationally as well. But like, who are the Northeast flag bearers? The people who are promoting us on a national and international basis. Ben Huchin is doing it for Valley. He's doing it very, very well. Who and not just politically, but who is doing it? Who are these people?
I think you'd be surprised. I mean, I guess you know, we've chatted about this before. That kind of caricature northeasterner is maybe a little bit in the past. I mean, I think there's pockets of people from the northeast in senior positions doing inspirational things all over the place. Musicians, artists, actors, creators, all over. You know, Jonathan Ive at Apple. You know, that no longer Apple. But there's all sorts of people all over the place. You know, you've got, you look at major TV shows, major radio shows. You know, Geordie voices are actually really prevalent. So you got George. I say Geordie, and what I mean by Geordie,
northeastern voices.
It's northeast. I don't mean Newcastle. I'm you know, whether George Clark is happy for me to call him a Geordie. George, you're a Geordie. Lauren Laverne, Anton Deck. You know, there's Geordies in our ears, in our faces, all over the place. And actually, I think, wasn't there a survey of you know, the most liked voices and, you know, dialects and all that sort of stuff? Newcastle came. I don't know whether it was top or whatever, but you know, friendliest city in the UK. I think we won that, didn't we? In 2000. That doesn't matter when we won it, but you know, it is a friendly place, and actually one of the reasons why I wanted to come back. Not to say that other places were unfriendly, but if you walk into a shop in town, you strike up a conversation like that. Doesn't necessarily mean anything, but the friendliness of the region, and I think people get that when they come. Weren't BBC up recently? Nick Robinson and Naga Munchetty and they came out on Twitter and said that they were, you know, absolutely bowled over by the region. You know, we're doing fantastic on the vaccination program. We're leading in the UK. We've got the best hospitals in the country. Amazing. You know, I'm going on a bit of a buy Newcastle trip here, but you know, we've won Smart Cities 2019. Sunderland was Smart City 2020. You know, the region's going places. Are we shouting it loud enough? Are we leveling up? Well, it's up to us to do that. We can't rely on the politicians to do that. We've got to push the creative arts. As you know, I've just taken up a board director and trustee role at Tyne and Wear Archives and Museums, where we get the opportunity to showcase the region's artifacts and art and amazing spaces, and I'm hoping to do something later this year that's really going to shine a light on those assets that we have. The city itself, you know, your Startup Scale Up Week, what was great for me, the first one I came to, was you did it in different places. You had the opportunity to go to different parts of the city, to meet with different people. Whereas if you sat in a role, you sat in a job, it's very easy to get kind of stuck in a, you know, I go into this office and then I meet these people here, and you operate within a very small circle. But actually, there's so much more to the region.
Yeah, no, that's, I mean, you've done an amazing job there of like selling the region. But you're right. I mean, that's the thing. All these things are there, and like when you're local, you see it, you know it, right? But I think even if you're local, there's a lot of local people who don't realize just how good things are here. Maybe because it's all they know, or the other kind of, or maybe they do know, but they just don't appreciate how it compares to other areas. I think that's another important thing about the Boomerangs, is you're better placed to know how it compares and contrasts with other cities and other regions around the country and around the world. So you can see, so often it's the people from outside the region coming in that are better at shouting about it or promoting it or see the opportunities. But all the things that you listed there on their own are amazing, but they need to be all pulled together into one like collective, ongoing, never-ending, daily like message about the region, because little bits here and there, or people popping up, journalists popping up and going, "Oh, it's nice up here. Didn't realize it was so nice," and then they go back down to London. That doesn't really help, do you know? So it needs people. I mean, everyday people, as well as people in positions of power and influence, and politicians and business leaders, and to keep pushing that message and make it clear that they're from the Northeast. I think that's one thing actually that the Irish do better, the Scots do better, maybe the people from Yorkshire do better, maybe even Mancunians do better, is that they always make it clear that they're from that area. That and I don't think we necessarily do that enough. You know, it's just kind of assumed that people know that where you're from, or because of the accent, or because of, but like, just, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, look, I mean, you asked me a question there. Who are my local heroes? The local heroes that I would say, that I feel are really making a difference right now, would not necessarily be household names. I mean, I think the answer I gave you was, what are the Geordie household names?
Yeah.
And actually, the people who are really making a difference, I think, are the likes of Karen Elliott at the university, Stephen Corhey, Nick Palmerini, Michelle Percy, Dame Jackie Daniels, not easy to say, Jen Hartley, Caroline Docking. There's people all over the place making a massive difference, but they're not household names, and they're doing that, and that's in the NHS, in the universities, educating, building, and developing the city. They're the real heroes for pushing the region forward, but they're not necessarily household names.
No. Well, they are doing. They're all doing amazing, world-class things, having real tangible results and benefits to the region. The only thing I would say on that, right, is I think about half of those people are not from the Northeast. They are people who've imported into the region, and they've built a career, and they fell in love with the region, and they love it, and they want to play their part, right? But I do think there's a slight difference, quite a big difference actually, between people who have moved in and doing that, and people who are actually homegrown doing that. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah. So it's not knocking it, because they are doing amazing, really amazing stuff that's having a massive impact, positive impact on the regional economy. But I just think sometimes if it's a homegrown Northeasterner doing that stands out a bit more. Do you know what I mean? So, and so I'm just trying to think who's doing that at the minute. I mean, we're talking.
Well, you got the big success stories, Sage.
Yeah.
Trying to think of big companies that are that based.
Greg's. Go on. I mean,
God, yeah, but I mean, to be honest, that's probably.
I mean, there's big brands like Barber. There are amazing world-class brands here. So it's just packaging that all up, and they are homegrown. They are amazing companies. So it's just packaging that up. I think where I'm getting at is, even on your shelf there, about half, not half, but a lot of them are Manchester.
Yeah.
So the Manchester scene, that was exciting. That got the whole of the country, the whole of the world wanted to be in Manchester, because of the art and the culture and the music and the vibe and the energy that was coming from that area at the time. And that had a positive impact on the business world as well. That whole Northeast Manchester Mancunian swagger to this day is still there. It's the benefit from that. Tony Wilson, Factory Records, Hacienda, all that sort of stuff. And I don't think the Northeast has really managed to do that yet. I'm not saying it can't, but it hasn't been able to do it yet. And if we can somehow ignite that and bring it all together. And that has to come from the grassroots, ground up community. It can't be the council leading that or any public sector organization making that happen. It has to be, they can facilitate it and they can remove barriers and they can pour a bit of fuel on the fire, but it has to be the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the creatives that start that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I do wonder whether that kind of thing has been born out of Manchester, Liverpool, people kind of staying put and developing out. Whereas I do think that people from the northeast, because it is historically that they're more comfortable going, right, okay, I'm off. I'm going to go and do that somewhere else, do my skill or spread my wings somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then come back. So it's actually on us as Boomerangs to do that ourselves. I think it's all of those things, Paul. I think it is the council and place. I love the idea of the pedestrianised streets and becoming more European. Yes, there's going to be naysayers. Yes, there's people saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to park in the middle of town again." That's standard stuff. Same thing happened when the tram was taken away, and the A1 was no longer going up and down Northumberland Street. You're always going to come up against that kind of thing. But actually, I think there is progression. The development of the university and the university space at the top of the hill there. You've had Hadrian's Tower put in, which is massive space. The tallest tower in the city. The place is developing, and it'd be interesting sort of post-COVID as we come out of the pandemic to see exactly what's been going on, because I imagine the building work hasn't abated. You tell me. I mean, you've lived.
Finished. It's complete. It looks amazing. People are moving in the next few weeks. Hadrian's Tower, stunning building. So I think that's a key thing. When I was at university, I was at Leeds Uni 95, 98, and there were scaffolding everywhere, buildings shooting up everywhere, loads of change going on in the city. And then more recently, when I worked for Tech North, I spent every week. I was over in Manchester, again, cranes everywhere. That's a sign of that the things are on the up. It's now happening. It has been happening in Newcastle, but it's really happening in Tees Valley now. There's buildings shooting up all over. That's a surefire sign that things are on the up and that there's opportunities and there's wealth going to be created in the region. And hopefully that in Tees Valley and Darlington will benefit the wider north of the northeast as well. So it's how we can all work together and collaborate and benefit from that and bring more work from other parts of the UK and around the world to the northeastern Tees Valley, that north shoring or Geordie shoring, whatever you want to call it, but definitely north shoring. I think more and more people are seeing the benefits of doing that. They were already starting to see that, I think, pre-COVID, but that's probably a lot of people outwardly sending that message out.
Yeah.
But now people have seen it and they're reading about it on a consistent basis, or they're seeing it for themselves. It's not the official people who are having to do that all the time. It's other people are talking about it now and getting excited because they can touch it and feel it and they can see the opportunities there. So since COVID, we'll kind of end on this, is I think there's been a lot of people who have left London. They've gone back to the regions. They've maybe gone back to their hometown or village or city to be with their friends and their family because of the lockdown. And they thought, actually, I don't need to be in London anymore. I can work from anywhere. And I love being here. And it's arguably a better quality of life, a higher quality of living, lower cost of living. So let's stay here. Let's move and bring our skills and network and wealth here and buy a house here. So are you noticing stuff like that as well, do you think, since COVID?
100%, it's happening. I mean, I was funnily enough, I was in Cramlington on Monday, seeing one of my clients, and Cramlington's going absolutely crazy. For those of you who don't know, Cramlington's northeast of Newcastle in North Tyneside, 5 miles out of the city centre, and there's just housing estates going up all over the place. I know that you go out to Tynemouth, and actually, as a those regions around the coast, Whitley Bay, Cullercoats, and actually starting to come a little bit more inland now as well. Places that you would maybe have called sort of deprived have really started to shoot up in price, and there is some gentrification going on. Where I was brought up in Heaton, it was always a decent area, but all of a sudden getting very trendy, and that whole kind of cafe culture starting to develop. I mean, I never thought in a million years that would happen in Heaton. Yes, in Jesmond, but yeah, mate, it's happening. It's happening all over the place, and I think we're ready for it. I think we're embracing it. So, look, I'm just looking forward to getting out of lockdown, getting back into the city, getting back into the office, getting back to events, seeing people, and growing and helping, and hopefully the city will thrive.
Yeah, no, well, it is. It definitely feels like that flat white economy is here. It's happening. All the things that people have been working on for years are coming to fruition now. So let's everybody, you, me, everybody who's watching this, let's play our part in just really ramping things up once the lockdown eases up, and because it's there for the taking.
It is, absolutely, mate. Well, I'll be back 12th of April. Office opens back up, so hopefully I'll see you then.
I'll see you there. All right. Okay. It's great bringing back a boomerang like yourself, because you are playing a very important role in the regional economy. So loved it. Right. Thanks. Always enjoy talking to you, Grant. So we'll leave it there.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Cheers, man.
Cheers, pal. See you later.
See ya.